In the history of modern warfare, there have been moments when the fate of an entire continent depended on a few hundred pounds of metal roaring through the sky. And if one had to choose a name standing on the brink of total defeat and precarious victory in World War II, it wouldn't be a general, not a leader, but an aircraft engine. A machine made of steel, oil, bearings, crankshafts, yet possessing enough power to turn the tide of the European battlefield. Rolls-Royce Merlin. A smaller engine than a car, yet possessing something every team, every racer, every warrior craves: the perfect combination of power, durability, and the ability to explode at precisely the right moment. But this isn't a beautiful story of industrial achievement. It's not the rosy myth often told in textbooks. Behind the name a Merlin, which sounds magical, lies a surprising, contradictory, tragic truth, and above all, a truth more shocking than anything you've ever known about any machine in sport or warfare today. We'll delve into that truth. A truth few are willing to face. The Allied victory and the survival of Europe relied on an engine that was almost discarded from the outset. To understand this shock, we must look back to the context. The 1930s. Europe was booming with technology, but also gradually entering the darkness of war. Every national air force was racing for speed, and in that race, the British were falling behind. While Germany was introducing powerful engines of up to 1,000 horsepower, the British were struggling with old, sluggish, inefficient designs. The Royal Air Force, RAF, was judged weak, slow, and unable to withstand the prospect of German aircraft swarming over London. A compact yet incredibly powerful V12 engine, exceeding all expectations. No one thought it could change history, until it actually did. But the most shocking thing wasn't Merlin's power. It was how it came about. It was created by engineers who seemed to be past their prime, a company on the verge of bankruptcy, and a series of decisions that, if misaligned by even a millimeter, could have led to a completely different outcome for World War II. Imagine a struggling football team, low budget, thin squad, lack of confidence. That was Rolls-Royce in the mid-1930s. The company was only known for luxury cars and had almost no established reputation in the production of modern aircraft engines. Their earlier designs, like the Kestrel engine, reliable but too weak to compete in the looming age of jets. So how did Merlin begin? It was just an upgraded version of an old engine. A small step. An idea that wasn't heavily invested in. A project nobody believed would change the course of war, and the first shocking truth: the British government had wanted to stop the Merlin project. They believed a larger, newer, bolder engine would be more suitable for future aircraft. If that decision had been made, the Rolls-Royce Merlin would never have existed. No Spitfire. No Hurricane. There was no victory in the Battle of Britain. A completely different world was almost created. When people think of the Merlin, they usually think of numbers, around 1,000 to 1,600 horsepower depending on the version. But those numbers weren't what changed warfare. What changed was how the Merlin generated that power. Just like in sports, it's not just about how strong you are, but how long you sustain that power, under what conditions, and whether you can unleash it at the right moment. One, double-stage supercharging. Merlin's steel lungs. While other engines struggle at high altitudes, Merlin maintains its power. This is like an athlete running at full speed at 4,000 meters without slowing down. Double-stage supercharging is the secret that allows British aircraft to climb higher, faster, accelerate more powerful, and maneuver more maneuverably, attack and retreat before the opponent can react. 2. Optimal power-to-weight ratio. The Merlin was much lighter than many engines of its time, yet equally powerful. This allowed aircraft using Merlin engines, like the Spitfire, to be both powerful and agile, creating almost unbelievable turning capabilities. In aerial combat, the ability to turn around a few fractions of a second faster is the difference between life and death. 3. Incredible durability. The Merlin can operate continuously under the following conditions: extremely cold temperatures, low pressure, lack of oxygen, heavy impacts during combat, flight, light bullet damage. Shocking fact: many pilots return to base with Merlins riddled with 1 to 2 bullet holes and still running smoothly. No other engine of the same era could survive under those conditions. War is always like sports. A team needs not only shining superstars, but also the right tactics and the right technology. Germany had the Daimler-Benz DB601 engine, extremely powerful, extremely modern, but the DB601 had a fatal weakness: it didn't like flying at high altitudes. Meanwhile, the Merlin shone brightest at high altitudes. The altitudes where battles typically took place. The Merlin was more powerful, more durable, and more versatile. The result, the Spitfire Mark II with Merlin, defeated the Bf-109 in most dogfights. Another shock: if Germany had the Merlin, the RAF would have had almost no chance. Merlin won because of America. This is a truth few people want to mention. When war broke out, Rolls-Royce was unable to produce the necessary number of Merlins. He needed tens of thousands of engines. Rolls-Royce could only produce a few thousand. Without engines, there were no planes. Without planes, there was no battle. Without a battle, there was no victory. So who saved Merlin? Ford and Packard, two American car manufacturers. The US agreed to manufacture the Merlin under license, and the results were so shocking that aviation history had to be rewritten. Packard improved the Merlin, increased durability, increased power, increased mass production capabilities, and created a Super Merlin version that made the P-51 Mustang the greatest fighter plane of the 20th century. And the final secret was revealed: the P-51 Mustang, an icon of the US Air Force, was only powerful because it used British engines. Imagine a world where the RAF is defeated, Germany gains air superiority, Europe is completely blockaded, the Allies lack sufficiently robust escort aircraft to protect their bomber squadrons. The war lasts another 5 to 7 years. Causes of casualties multiply many times over. This is not fiction. This is a scenario that could have happened if Merlin hadn't existed. 1. Battle of Britain, 1940. The Spitfire and Hurricane, both using Merlins, held the Luftwaffe at bay. Without Merlins, Britain would have fallen. 2. North African Air Combat Merlins allowed the Spitfire to operate in the intense heat that many other engines would have struggled with. 3. P-51 Mustang Bomber Escort, 1943 to 1945. American aircraft flew deep into Germany without being shot down. En masse. Survival rates increased, firepower was sustained, bombing strategies became more effective. 4. Optimized industrial production. Packard Merlins were produced in massive numbers, allowing aircraft to be replaced faster than they were shot down. In other words, Merlins not only helped win individual battles, they changed the pace of the war. Every glory comes with a dark side. The Merlin was powerful, but so complex that it required constant maintenance. It consumed a lot of fuel. It was sensitive to the quality of lubricating oil. It was difficult to repair on the front lines. Each engine had up to 30,000 components that needed to be assembled with millimeter precision. One wrong step, the engine failed. Engine failure, pilot's life. Some pilots called the Merlin a true friend, but others called it a finicky beast. But it was precisely this complexity that allowed the Merlin to reach the physical limits that very few engines of its time could achieve. A shocking but true truth: the Merlin was not a perfect engine. It was only a perfect engine at the moment history needed it most. Think about sports legends: a race car driver who changed the way the track competes, an athlete who stunned the world with their ability to push boundaries, a team that created an unbelievable season at that clutch moment when everything was about to fall apart. Without Merlin, the history of World War II would have been completely different. Without Merlin, the European sky would never have turned blue again. Without Merlin, the milestones of victory would have remained mere unfulfilled hopes. It's not just an engine. It's proof that sometimes a technical detail, a small decision, a piece of metal can change the course of history. And that's the shocking truth behind the Rolls-Royce Merlin. An engine that was almost discarded. An engine that transcended human limits. An engine that saved an entire continent with its power, durability, and timely burst of power. An engine that won the most important battle the world has ever seen.